Hi, I'm Jean Galloway from the Department of Agriculture and Food in Western Australia. I'm an epidemiologist working on yellow spot on wheat stubble. Well, I was discussing the survival of yellow spot on wheat stubble and how that relates to environment, rainfall, temperature in different locations that we've studied in Western Australia and in locations in South Australia and Victoria. Well, we probably had variable responses to fungicides. So some years we found early sprays were giving us effective treatment and other years early sprays weren't. So we realized that we needed to know more about the fungus and what it was doing and when it was infecting the crops. Yeah, we took infected stubble from the previous season. We put it at 5 locations in Western Australia, and then we would monitor it through the season every fortnight, digging off the fruiting bodies off the stubble and then deciding and looking under a microscope to determine the maturity of the spores, and then working out when they were being released during the season. Well, we found that in our sort of southern coastal regions that the maturation was happening early, and in a lot of cases the primary infection was occurring before the crop had even emerged from the ground. So in fact the spores were landing on the dirt in the paddock. They weren't infecting the wheat crop, so in fact those crops escape disease infection. But then further up north we were finding that the infection window where the spores are produced is absolutely overlapping with the crop. Some years when we get early infection, that can mean a very early start to the season, so you might get a May maturation. We plant in May, so it might mean that the crop is infected for a very long time, but in other times it might only be a June, July infection maturation, and then the infection is happening later in the crop, and that will influence the efficacy of the treatments and the timing of the treatments. We're starting to push into, as we would call it, the eastern states. So yes, we've got some work happening in South Australia. We've been using 2 sites there at Waite and at Hart in collaboration with Rowan Kimber from Saudi. And then we started last year looking at some sites from Victoria. So we had some stuff weathering at Horsham with Grant Holloway and his group there. So far the results look like they're similar to our northern regions, which is what we would have expected from things. So yeah, we haven't found something that's startlingly different in those years yet. So we looked at how long the yellow spot survives on the stubble from year to year, and we found that most of the yellow spot, it's mostly active in the first year on the previous season's stubble. So when it was infected last year, this year we'll get the majority of the spores maturing, and once they've finished their maturation they don't produce more spores. The year after that you may still get some yellow spot fruiting bodies occurring on the stubble, but it's normally 90 to 95% reduction in the amount. And so what we're finding is that we're saying to growers that if you are at a high risk, try not to grow wheat on wheat. You might have at least 1 year's break between your wheats, and you would reduce your risks significantly. We had that work modelled to produce a decision support tool that will help us determine whether you're going to have an early maturation year or a late maturation year, which will help growers decide when would be the best time to target their sprays and their treatments, whether an in-furrow treatment might be effective in a year where it has early maturation, but if you're having late maturation, an in-furrow treatment would be a waste of money, or an early spray might be a waste of money because the disease isn't there yet. So it will help growers target which years they need to come early sprays and which years they can rely on just late sprays.